I'll stick by that. It's a whole different experience. The VR Goonin experiences. That's top tier. Okay, it's S tier. It's up there. That's what I was about to say. I get an update. I get an update once a month or so from Samsung for my phone. And all it says is security updates. And the patch notes don't tell me what security thing they're fixing. But it'll add about 6 random fucking games to my phone without my consent every time it does this update. And I can't skip the update. I can't postpone the update. I can't tell it I don't want the update. It does it on its own whether I like it or not.
I think Microsoft could make its own carrier at that point.
Why?
Have their own satellites.
Yeah, but why? That's really expensive for not a lot of return. Like, sure they could, but
a lot of stupid shit and it's expensive for not a lot of
That's crazy. You're talking about putting new satellites in fucking space, dude. That is crazy.
Part of the reason I like Tetris Effect more than every other version of Tetris is that at least it's visually fucking interesting. I can't just stare at that block all day or fucking for an hour even.
Oh, there's like a ton of there's like 100 different themes and ways to change Tetris 99 at this point. Some of them fucking soundtrack on the Mario versus Bowser one. Or the Mario 3D Land Bowser's Fury one, like that soundtrack. Oh my god! Like I'll play for the music. The music speeds up as the fucking pieces speed up. It sounds like something of a fucking Doom game. It's this hard rock metal thing, and I'm like, oh my god, this is badass. Yeah, and you can change the pieces to look like whatever you want. It doesn't have to look like just colors and blocks. They've got some that look like the one from Tetris Effect, or they look like gels. Some where they look like gears. Some where they, so it does that too. It's not just Tetris Effect. It's not as flashy and 3D as Tetris Effect. Like, it doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but you can change the background and you can change the like that's what the themes do.
The only reason I even think I would give more of a fuck about Tetris Effect is because it was in VR. I tried it because I'm never going to own a VR headset. I don't care. I don't want one. I don't give a shit about, like, and until it becomes, like, actually mainstream, I don't give a fuck. It's too gimmicky. It's
kind of
in
there.
Its infancy.
It's way past its infancy. It's kind of there. It just doesn't get the media attention for some reason. Because every time, like, everyone talk, like, all the influencers talk shit on it like it's gimmicky, but, like, when you look at the sales numbers for it, it's doing fine. It sold more than, like, I think it's on par with the PS5 at launch. Like the Quest 2. Like crazy high numbers for a VR headset, and every new version sells more than the last, so more and more people are getting into it, and the games are getting more and more elaborate. Just no one covers the shit. Like, everyone has wrote it off. Like, if VR stuff is even mentioned to, like, Angry Joe, for instance, he's going to be my go-to, because it's, like, the only real gaming news thing I can think of off the top of my head, but yeah, like, they go, oh, VR. They kind of have the same response that you have, and I'm like, it's clear that you guys haven't played any of these games. Like, there's, like, you guys are working
on a headset. Why would
yeah, but that's the thing. Like, no one reports on it. So, like, everyone's knowledge of VR is, like, 4 years old. Like, gimmicky games and bullshit, that was 4 years ago. Now we've got stuff like Half-Life Alyx, Borderlands 2, Resident Evil 4 got remade into VR. There's several others. There's another new one that's out too that I'm interested in that I can't remember the name of. I wishlist this stuff on my Quest, but I haven't pulled my Quest out in a while. Yeah, but now they're doing, like, full-fledged original games, not just remaking old games into it. I think there's a VR.
Part of it is that they just remade games for so long. Of course, that's what people.
I think they've done.
The platform is.
I think they done. Well, people wouldn't think that if they market better. Like, A, marketing is terrible, and B, no influencers cover it. Like, they need to just be paying influencers to be like, play our shit, stream our shit, show it off, talk about it, make a video on it, something. Because, like, no one talks about it.
The majority of the market is that VR chat market, bro. Honest to God.
No, definitely not. The majority of the market, the vast majority of the market, is fitness. People use it for fitness. That's why Beat Saber's so goddamn popular. That game will work you out on its hardest mode. On its like you will get a full body workout in that. There's like VR fitness games where you do boxing, you do aerobics, all that stuff. Yeah, like that's probably their biggest seller, if I'm being honest. That's probably the biggest point behind it. That a lot of people own it. But but you use that to get those people in the door. And then you get them onto other stuff. It's either stuff like that and then stuff that's like not very interactive. Like the gateway, what I call the gateway games. Games that are easy to get into, anyone can play, and they show off what VR is capable of. And after they've owned the headset for a while and they've gone through those, now they might branch out into actual gaming. So they market to non-gamers first. Like that's where the majority of the marketing goes. So like fitness stuff, roller coaster games where you just sit and it's like simulates riding a roller coaster. It simulates going on a tour of some place, or those interactive experiences that aren't like games. Those are popular. But that's just the stuff to get people's foot in the door. There's some really good shit in VR that just like doesn't get any attention. Like there's a fighting game in VR. There's a fucking fighting game, and one of the modes in it sits you on stage at Evo, so you can like look to your right and see a person sitting next to you. Like it basically emulates being on stage at Evo playing in a tournament, and you can like lean over and look past the monitor and see the crowd. Yeah, like all of that. It's a really cool way to play a fighting game. It gets no fucking attention. I can't remember what the name of it is. I saw it once. It's shit like that. Xbox Game Pass is on VR, which granted those aren't VR games, but it emulates playing your VR on like a movie screen. So you can have as big a television as you want in VR because you get into it, you pick your setting, and then you adjust the size of the screen. So you can, if you can't afford, like that's another use for it. People love watching movies in VR because if you can't afford a fucking 75-inch television or this big home theater system, you can fake it in VR now. You can make the screen as big as you want and feel like you're in a movie theater. It's a lot of real cool uses for VR that just get no attention. Like, I think that's what I used my VR headset for a while. Like, the two things I think I ended up doing with it that I never expected I would do after owning a VR headset were doing the movie thing. Me and the wife both have VR headsets, so we do our date nights and sit in our fucking recliners in the living room, which are cabin chairs like in a movie theater. So we're physically sitting next to each other in real life, but we're in VR sitting next to each other in a movie theater. So we would just can't afford to go to the movies, don't want to go to the movies, whatever. Just fake it on that. It made for a pretty cool experience. That, and I'm not even a big poker player, but like that's the only way I'll play a poker video game, because it feels like you're sitting physically at the table with people actually playing poker, and it becomes more of a social aspect. Like some of my funnest streams and funnest stuff to do in VR we're going into Poker Stars, sitting at the table, and then you can smoke, you can drink, you can sit there, and it's just like you and 5 other people, and it's got open voice chat, and you just end up talking about shit. Like playing like the actual game of poker becomes background noise while you're just chatting and chilling. No other poker game does that. Like all the rest of them are just like hardcore poker stuff where you're just where you're just staring at a aerial view of a table on your screen and playing, but you can't talk to the other players, or no one really. It's a different interactive experience. It's a lot of good uses for VR that just get no attention, and that you don't understand if you've never owned a VR headset, because it's not stuff you think about. And then you find someone who has a VR headset and ask them what they use it for. I think you'll be shocked at the answer. There's like a list of must-play games, but then you find all this other cool shit to do on it too. You find yourself getting into stuff you normally wouldn't get into because of the fact that you experience it differently. Like, I don't usually play poker, but that made poker fun. And of course, porn. Porn's better in VR. I'll stick by that. It's a whole different experience. The VR Goonin experiences. That's top tier. Okay, it's S tier. It's up there. I'm waiting for somebody to make that Diddy Freak Off app so you can emulate being at one of his freak offs to see what it was like.
Jesus.
I'd say VR is worth it. Like the main problem it has is, other than marketing, the other main problem it has is the price. That's why the Quest 2 did so fucking well. Because it removed the two biggest problems with VR that kept it from going mainstream. That's why the Quest 2 went mainstream. It did go mainstream. It sold millions of units. It dwarfed every other VR headset, and that's because it solved the two biggest problems in VR. The first problem was how it tracked you. Every VR headset before the Quest 2 required you to mount sensors around your room and to be wired to something. And then the Quest 2 came out. It's fully self-contained. It doesn't have to be wired to anything. Yeah, the graphics aren't as good as PC, but you don't need to hook it up to anything. And you didn't need any sensors. It used external cameras. So you could literally just put it on and play. And then the other biggest problem was the fucking price tag. Every VR headset before the Quest 2 was like upwards of $1,000 or more. Quest 2 launched at $300. It was like cheaper than a console. It was cheaper than buying a new Xbox or a PlayStation. Like, they hit the sweet spot with that one. And once you remove those two like massive barriers of entry, tons of people got on board. Tons of people tried it out. And yeah, the Quest 2's graphics are not super great. I'd say they're on par with PS3. But just the ease of use and the fact that it was relatively cheap. Quest 3 didn't do as well, which is why they've recently dropped the price on it, because it came out at like $600, like double the price of the Quest 2, and people just weren't like, oh, it's too much. So they've dropped the price. They just did a price drop on the Quest 3 to drop it by $150. So now it's more in line with the Quest 2. So it's probably going to sell well. When did that price drop happen? Has it happened yet? Because I know they announced it, that they were going to be dropping the price on it. They were discontinuing the more expensive model and dropping the price on the base model. So they're just going to do the one model, or they're going to do a new model of Quest 3. It's kind of a mid-tier, in between the cheap tier and the expensive tier, and drop the price by $150. So it's cheaper and better than the original Quest 3. Let's see, Quest 3... price drop, and they discontinued the Quest Pro entirely. That was their $1,200 headset that no one fucking bought because it's $1,200. Okay, 6 days ago. Yeah, original price $599. And it's dropping about $150. I don't think it's dropped yet. Supposed to happen fourth quarter 2024. So they haven't announced an official date for the price drop, but sometime before the end of the year. I imagine it'll be around Christmas. It's probably going to drop, and then you'll probably see a spike in sales in Quest 3. And the more people that buy the headsets, the more of a user base it gets, the more developers are going to get on board, and the better the VR experiences you're going to get. That's how it works. Like, yeah, everything was gimmicky at first because none of the developers like big name developers wanted to make games for it because there weren't that many users. There wasn't much profit in it. They want a return on their investment. But if you can show them, hey, we've got 10 million fucking Quest users here just itching for something, well, now it becomes worth making a game for it because you've got enough people that own the headset to probably get good sales. Once it's got console numbers as its user base, if as many people own a Quest as own an Xbox or a PlayStation, then these devs will make games for it. And then you'll stop getting the gimmicky games. You'll start getting the cool shit like Half-Life Alyx. You'll start getting that really immersive, creative shit. And then as more developers, bigger name developers, not indie devs, but as more of the companies that got the money to put the budget behind it start making games for it, the more games they make, the better they get at it, and the more new tricks they learn. And there's so many, like, so much more shit they can do in VR. So much more creative, like, things they can do that you just can't do with a physical controller and a screen. So once they start getting creative and find ways to immerse you in the game in ways that you can't be before, then it'll really become mainstream. It's just it's a slow burn because of their shitty marketing. And they're real bad at marketing, and they're real bad at, like, incentivizing devs to make products for the platform. That's like the other thing that they're really bad at. So they need to, like, fix those two problems, and then VR will go mainstream. Because once the price drop happens, what's going to happen is once the price drop happens on the Quest 3, which I don't even own a Quest 3 yet. But once the price drop happens on that, I imagine the price of a Quest 2, most of those will probably drop as well in order for... Because you can still get Quest 2s at Walmart and Best Buy and shit. Like, it's not like you have to buy them used. They still actively sell those. They're still, like, an option on the store shelf. So once the Quest 3 drops to be the price of a Quest 2, then they're going to, like, clearance out those Quest 2s in order to get them off the shelf. So then you'll be able to get a Quest for, like, $150, probably. And once that happens, if you can find one at a Walmart or Best Buy or Target or something near you for like $150, fucking grab that shit. I mean, yeah, it's the Quest 2, it's the previous generation, but there's still a ton of good shit on Quest 2. And the Quest 2 has...
Too rich for my blood.
The Quest 2 has, I think, the almost the same resolution as the Quest 3. Like, I don't think the Quest 3 got a higher resolution. Like, I think they're pretty good on resolution. It's already like 8K resolution in that headset. It's like 4K per lens. So you're viewing everything in 8K. I don't think they can get much bigger than that. The main, like, the best use for the Quest 2 is to play PC VR games. Once they release the update that let the Quest 2 link to your PC wirelessly, so you can play PC VR games without being physically tethered to your PC, that became like a must-have if you're going to get into VR. Because that's why it took me so long to finish Half-Life Alyx, because I would have to, like, get an HDMI cord, and I'd have to get the USB cord, and I'd have to hook them up to my computer and hook them up to the headset, and I'd have to be physically tethered to the headset. I had to buy all these extra long cords so I could have room to walk around the room. And it was the only time I had to be plugged into something when playing my Quest, because everything else on the Quest was, you know, the headset was self-contained. You just put it on and play. But if I wanted to play PC VR games instead of the ones on the Quest, I had to be plugged into the VR. Then Meta released an update for the Quest that allowed you to do a wireless link. So basically it streams the screen. It's basically game streaming, but from your computer to the headset. Once they did that, and now I could just, like, be downstairs in the living room where I've got more room, but I could still play Half-Life Alyx and not be in the same room as my PC and tethered to it. I actually finished Half-Life Alyx. Like that changed everything. Resolution's a little bit lower because it is streaming, but, you know, they do give you the options to adjust it. So you can find what works with your router and, you know, blah, 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 depending on how fast your Wi-Fi is. But it works pretty well. Right now, the thing they're working on is getting hand tracking in the game. They've got pretty good hand tracking with menus, but not a lot of games use it yet. But if they can get hand tracking to work as well as a controller, then you won't even need controllers for it anymore. It'll just see your hands. Then you can have physical hands in the game instead of, you know, pulling a trigger to, you know, move your finger. Now you can move all 5 of your fingers and you can actually interact with shit. Once they get better at the hand tracking and games can actually use it reliably to add those interactive experiences where now you can be in VR. And
I never understood why they didn't do the glove controller, because like I saw they made pretty accurate like people who aren't even as like smart as them were making those like controllers that had like the fucking, it was just a glove and it had like the little strings on it and it would detect when you were like actually grabbing something
they
and like try
did
to like make it so your hands wouldn't.
they did those. No one bought them. People
They
don't
made
want
them
to.
separate. That's what I'm saying. I don't understand why they don't make those. Like if they made them a part of the
People
controller, that
people
makes more
don't
sense than doing hand track.
people don't want them. People don't want to put on goofy shit. People don't want to put on goofy shit. Like they even had a bundle for the Quest that came with that shit. Like no one bought it. Like they had
Oh,
gloves.
like wearing a giant fucking pair of goggles on your face doesn't look goofy as fuck.
It's I don't think it's what it looks like. I think it's just how it feels. People don't want to put on clothes to play a game. Like it's one thing to put something on your head, but to have to start dressing yourself to play a game. Yeah, like people just didn't want to do it. Cuz they had gloves, they had a vest that would like give you feedback when you got shot and stuff. They tried everything to make you feel as immersed. Like at one point they had a full
The
fucking
vest is too much. Just the gloves.
they had ankle they had things you could put on your shoes or on your ankles so they would track your feet so you could play stuff like soccer games, etc. No one bought them. No one bought them. And the ones for your feet, it's not even like you had to put on shoes or like wear something like a glove. It was just a strap. You just strap it on. It was just a sensor. It didn't like sense your toes and shit. It just tracked where your feet were. Because that was always everyone's biggest complaint is, oh, my character doesn't have legs. It doesn't know where my feet are. Yeah, okay. So then they addressed that. They made that. And then people didn't buy it.
Charge $59.99 for it.
Well, they made bundles of the Quest that included it for free. Like the same price.
Yeah, but all the people who were interested in it, who had that complaint,
yeah, but that's not
going to rebuy a whole bundle.
Sure they are. Like, well, they're not going to buy a whole bundle, but they'll buy the accessory. People buy dumber accessories for video games all the fucking time. Like things sell if people want them. It's just people didn't want to strap shit to their shoes for some reason. Fight sticks are insanely fucking expensive compared to other accessories, but fighting game players eat them up. Like, you know, steering wheels are like $300-400. Racing game fans eat them up. Like people will buy the shit if it has a use that they want. People wanted that. People wanted it to see their feet, but they didn't want to put shit on their feet. I don't understand why you wouldn't want to put shit on your feet. I don't care about soccer games, so I didn't buy it, but I would have bought it. But like people bought the fucking, like they were sold out of the fucking same price, the fucking $50 gun for the Quest was sold out for a long time. And it's basically the same thing. Like you can do the same thing with the controllers. You don't even need that to function in these games. It was just a gun controller that made you physically feel like you were holding a gun, and it had all the controls on a gun instead of on two wands. That thing sold the fuck out. And it was a completely optional one. You didn't need to play a game. Like if you wanted to play some of these soccer games, like you needed to have your feet tracked. You didn't need to have the gun version of the controller to play a gun game, but people bought them. People bought the wands for Beat Saber. You don't need that, but people didn't like Beat Saber. I'll admit takes a little getting used to get in VR, and in the real world, you're just holding a controller in your hand, but in VR, you're holding this big-ass stick, a lightsaber. So it feels weightless in your hand. You can't feel the stick, even though you're swinging it around in VR. Then they made a Beat Saber controller that just, it was basically a regular controller that just had a long stick on the end of it with some weight to it, so you could feel like you were physically swinging around a real stick. You could feel the stick now. Those sold out. Like, people will buy crazy shit if it has a use they want. It's just people, for whatever reason, like, you can't get people to wear shit. Like, other than the headset itself, it's hard to get people to wear something in VR. Like, the gloves make more sense. You'll have more control over it. It's why Valve made the controller that they made. Like, Valve has a controller. It's got a big ring over it. Like, the controller for their Index has a big ring over the top of the controller. That ring is there with infrared lights to track your fingers. That's how they do hand tracking. It's just on the controller itself. You still have to hold a controller, but now when you move your fingers off the controller, you're holding the controller, and then you can move your fingers like this. The game will move the fingers because you could always tell.
Okay, hold on. I get what you're saying. They're not gonna fucking. I want to know your opinion on what do you think Xbox is gonna make a VR?
No,
Do you
for
think they're
what
gonna
if
make a handheld?
maybe the handheld makes more sense than the VR. For whatever reason, Xbox has zero interest in
I don't
VR.
think they're gonna do a handheld.
They might. It depends.
It
Xbox
goes
is
against their literal philosophy for Game Pass.
no, it doesn't.
Yes, it does. Because
The
they want
philosophy
why make a phone when they already you can play Game Pass on your phone? Like, why make a glorified phone?
because
Like
because
they already have an official controller for your phone.
because there's several reasons why you would do a handheld instead of do it for your phone. A, they've done the phone thing for a while now. The problem is not everyone's phone is the same. So you've got like it's way harder to keep an app updated and functional across multiple pieces of hardware. Now you got to make an iOS version, now you got to make an Android version, and not every Android phone is the same, not every iOS phone is the same. The controller, most people don't want to carry a controller. Like they're struggling to get people to play on their phone, despite Game Pass being on your phone. They're struggling to get people to play on it now. But the Switch, like, in all honesty, Nintendo games could run better on modern cell phones than they could on the Switch. But by giving it a dedicated piece of hardware, more people got into it. I don't know why that's how it is, but for some reason, the vast majority of the population can't wrap their head around, I can do shit on my phone. You have to give them a dedicated piece of hardware. I don't know why. That's just how our society works. I cannot count the number of times I've had to remind people in real life that your phone can do this thing you're freaking out that no one will help you do. Like it blows my mind. I will still get calls. I'm not even talking about like friends my age. I get them old. But I've got friends your age, and I'll get calls from them. Random parts of the night. In fact, I got one on stream the other day where they were lost and they didn't know where to go. And they need someone to come get them. I mean, the guy that called the other night was because his truck broke down. But I'll get calls from friends that will do that they've drove around somehow and got lost in the year 2024 with a phone in their pocket. And they don't know what to do. And I'm like, your phone has a GPS on it. Use that. And they're like, oh yeah. Like, people have to be reminded this shit exists. I don't know why. It happens to me at work all the time. Someone will walk up to a coworker and they won't speak the same language. And they'll be like, do we have anybody on staff to speak Spanish? And they'll start freaking out and carrying this customer around the store, fucking looking for somebody that speaks Spanish, when you've got a universal goddamn translator in your pocket. Just open Google Translate and talk into the phone. It will play it back to them in Spanish. And then they talk to the phone in Spanish, and it plays it back to you in English. I use Google Translate at work all the time to communicate with customers who do not speak English. It's fine. But people need to be reminded that this exists. I don't know why. And the whole philosophy for Game Pass is play anywhere. So a handheld makes sense. Especially after seeing, I don't think they were interested in it until they saw how well everyone thought that Sony handheld was going to flop. And that thing's not even a console. It's just for streaming games. That thing sold the fuck out, dude. It might still be sold out.
Really
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I don't get the handheld thing either.
I don't get it, but that's how I don't understand it, but I understand the market. That's what works. People want a dedicated machine. Nintendo could have put all the games on their Switch on my cell phone, and they would have a higher resolution and probably run better. But if they did that, they'd get less sales. I don't know why. People would rather buy a separate piece of hardware and then buy their game than just buy their game and use it on the thing they already have. I don't know why. I really don't. I would much rather have all of the Switch games. I'd rather Nintendo stop making hardware and just make games and fucking put them on cell phones then. I desperately want Nintendo to save the mobile game market. to change it, to save it, because they have that power.
I don't know why they don't make their own phone while they're at it and then just release their own app store.
Well,
Let other people download it. Be like, okay, the only way you can get Nintendo games is through our app store. Fine.
Yeah,
Fine.
but then you still got to. Yeah, but then you still got to sell your phone.
No. Make it so that it can go on other platforms, but you can't re-upload Nintendo games onto other app stores.
You can't. That's the problem Epic's facing right now with Google and Apple. They won't allow other marketplaces on their phones. So the Epic Game Store can't go on an Android phone or an Apple phone. If they wanted Fortnite on there, they're actively suing Google right now because for the second time, they won the first one because you couldn't get Fortnite on mobile after they removed it from the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store because they wouldn't allow them to make their own store and they wouldn't allow like people to sideload shit without jailbreaking their phone. And then Epic sued them, and Epic won, and now you can sideload stuff onto Android and onto Apple. So you can get the Epic Game Store on your Android phone, and you can get Fortnite. But you have to go to Epic's website to download the Epic Game Store, and you have to install it as a third-party app, which they're suing Google now for because the process for doing that requires hooking your phone up to a PC, putting it in developer mode, and allowing unknown sources, which your average everyday person isn't going to know how to do. So yeah, technically it's allowed, but it's still really hard to do. There's still like a barrier for entry. Like, these companies fight tooth and nail to have control over their phones. And
honestly, I think it would become a bigger issue if that's how Nintendo did it, so I still want them to do it. I know it would be a reason not to do it, but I think it would be a reason that gets changed.
It would be a much... Yeah, but the problem is it comes down to money. It's a much, much bigger investment to do that than it is to just make a console. Because in order to do that and get your own marketplace and get it easy to use, because that's Nintendo's whole thing is everything they have is easy to use and intuitive. They target the casual market. Nintendo would want their games to be easy to find and easy to install, as in you just press an install button and it's on your phone. And right now you can't do that with anything outside the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. That's what Epic's suing about. If you wanted Fortnite, you can't just click an install button. You have to hook the phone up to the PC. You got to do 20 other steps to get there first. And it's anti-competitive. And I agree with them. It is ridiculous. Oh, and every step of the way that you're doing this, your phone will remind you every time you do this, every step of the way. Are you sure you want to do this? It could make your phone unsafe. So now they're scaring people into not doing it. Because yes, technically, installing apps from unknown sources could open your phone up to getting hacked or to getting bad apps. So it's like you need to trust the app you're getting. So it makes it sound like the phone is less secure. Technically it is, but as long as you're not installing anything from a malicious website, you're fine. But the average everyday person doesn't understand that. As soon as they get that pop-up, they get scared and they back out. Nintendo would want you to just be able to press an install button. And in order for them to get that, the amount of money they'd have to invest would be the amount of money needed to win a lawsuit. And that's way more expensive than just building another console. That's why they don't do it. Because as much shit as people talk about the Epic Game Store, like, I hope they fucking win. Because they're right. The Google Play Store and the Apple App Store have a monopoly on the mobile market. If you want anything for your phone, you have to go through them. For the most part, for the everyday average person, you have to go there. You don't have a choice. Average everyday person isn't jailbreaking their phone or hooking it up to a computer to go into developer mode. Like, you have to do that. I do that. Like, I go into developer mode. I've got a bunch of apps that I don't get from the App Store. Like, most of my apps don't come from the App Store. I don't play games. I've got emulators and all this other shit that I've gotten off the web. But your average everyday person isn't doing what I'm doing. They do have a monopoly over those. And they charge like an insane fee. And that's how they make their money. Because you put your game on
And they
the
do the same shit with their repairs too. It's fucking ridiculous.
yeah, they're also being sued right now for the right to repair. There's a YouTuber that's doing it. His entire channel is like repairing stuff. Yeah, and he's suing them. So I hope he wins too.
Louis Rossman.
Yeah, but yeah, and I hope he wins too because you own the thing. You should have a right to repair it yourself if you want to. And now it can void the warranty. That's fine, but you should have the right to repair it. Like you shouldn't have to go through them to get the parts. You shouldn't have to. Yeah, like there should be aftermarket options. It's just like with your car. You don't have to get parts directly from the dealership. You can go to AutoZone. You can go to there's third-party manufactured stuff. Like you have control over your vehicle. You have control over everything else you own except for your phone for some reason. Like it's ridiculous. The like grip they have on this market, and it needs to be addressed. So I hope they win.
I think they're suing Apple. I think they have to literally go state by state and just like make the fucking officials listen.
Maybe. I'm not sure what the process is for the right to repair stuff, but I do know for the monopoly stuff, like that's federal, so Epic can just sue them. And Epic has the money to actually win, so I hope Epic does win because they do have a monopoly on it because they make their money by you put your game on the. This is why Epic pulled their game from the market to begin with because of how much dirty money Apple and Google were stealing from them, basically. So they put Fortnite. We all know how many billions of dollars Fortnite makes. So, do some quick math in your head here. Fortnite's making, let's just say
Imagine
$1 billion.
How much money they're making off of shit like Candy Crush.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. All right, Fortnite, let's just say Fortnite makes $1 billion in a year. And they put it on the Apple App Store. Apple takes 30% of every transaction that goes through their App Store. So they just made $300 million for nothing. They didn't do anything. They just posted in their App Store. Epic does all the work, does all the development time, does all the marketing, does everything to make this $1 billion, and then Apple stole 30% of that. And they didn't do anything but host it on a web store. That is an insane percentage to do nothing. Which is why Epic pulled it out, because they're like, we're losing hundreds of millions of dollars a year for no good fucking reason. And they're right. That is retarded. That shouldn't be allowed. That's like mafia shit.
I hate our government.
where these companies are basically making their own taxes. That's basically an app tax that devs have to pay for every fucking transaction. Like, I understand having to pay to put it on there, maybe even a yearly fee to let them keep hosting it. But to have them then take 30% of every transaction that went through inside your game, they don't have anything to do with that. Once the game's been downloaded from their market, they should be done. They should no longer be part of that transaction after that point. They served their purpose. They hosted the game, people found the game, people downloaded the game. They shouldn't then be taking 30% of any microtransactions you made while you were in the game. You should be able to sell to your customer directly inside your own game. That's retarded that they take 30% of that. But that's what they do. They take 30% of all the microtransactions. Which is why they got sued, and why I hope that they lose. But that's why Nintendo doesn't make stuff for phones, and then if they're going to make their own phone, now they got to work with carriers and contracts and all that other stuff, and at that point, just make a console. Like, if you're going to convince people to buy a new piece of hardware, because the whole point in making something for the mobile market is that people don't have to buy hardware to get it. You're tapping into a market of pretty much the entire population of the Earth. They already have the hardware. They're an untapped market just waiting to be sold to. That's the idea. Is you've got billions of people who already have a device capable of playing your game. You just need to get them to play your game. It's a lot easier to get people to buy a game on a thing they already have than to get them to buy a new thing and then buy the game. So the whole reason mobile games took off is that you don't have to sell hardware to the customer. They already have it. You're just telling them to buy a thing for something they already have. So if you remove that part from the equation and Nintendo starts making their own phone, well, at that point, just make a console. And it was the same thing with Sony and Xbox. Sony tried the phone thing, remember? Failed miserably.
I don't know. I thought Microsoft had a good shot. They like a lot of
Microsoft tried the phone thing
too early.
Microsoft tried the phone thing. No, Microsoft stayed in it a lot longer than Sony did. They tried really, really hard to make their phone a thing, an actual competitor to Google and Apple. Just
yeah, because they call it the fucking Windows Phone instead of the fucking Microsoft phone, bro. I sort
of. It doesn't matter what you call it, people. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's all the behind the scenes stuff that stop it from happening. It doesn't matter what you call it if you can't get people to buy it. And the thing is, when it comes to phones, you're not trying to get people to buy your phones. Like, you understand that, right? Like, you're not trying to get people to buy your phones. You need carriers to buy your phones. Because the majority of people who have a cell phone have it as part of a contract where the phone was given to them for free by the carrier. And Google and Apple have exclusive contracts with certain carriers. So that's where Microsoft ran into its fucking roadblock. It couldn't get contracts with these carriers to have them offer their phone for free. So the only way you could get a Windows phone or a Microsoft phone or an Xbox phone or whatever the fuck they wanted to call it, the only way you could get that phone would be to buy it outright. And phones are expensive. Like $800,000 expensive. So, yeah. If they can't get the contracts with the carrier, like if you can't get the carriers to give your phone away for free, it's dead in the water no matter how good the phone is. Tons of companies have figured this shit out the hard way, including Microsoft, Sony, Razer, a ton of them.
I mean, then why aren't the carriers buying it? Like, wouldn't they have figured that out by now?
Contracts. They're contracted. They took a contract from Google and Apple before whatever new phone come along that existed, and they can't break the contract to buy the new thing. Contracted. They're locked in. It's literally anti-competitive. Why they're being sued. They have a stranglehold on this market. So if you want... So if you want into this market, you have two choices. You can either make games or apps and lose 30% of your revenue because you have to make those games or apps for the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store, or you make your own handheld and just make a gaming device.
Bro, that's why fucking games have become, like, on phones have become so fucking stagnant and so greedy. It's not because of fucking...
I was going to make a video on it. Okay.
Everybody, like, always...
Does your phone do this?
China, bro.
I need to know if your phone... I need to know if your phone does this.
Downloads random fucking shit onto my fucking phone, yes.
That's what I was about to say. I get an update.
I hate it.
I get an update once a month or so from Samsung for my phone. And all it says is security updates. And the patch notes don't tell me what security thing they're fixing. But it'll add about 6 random fucking games to my phone without my consent every time it does this update. And I can't skip the update. I can't postpone the update. I can't tell it I don't want the update. It does it on its own whether I like it or not. And then every time my phone updates, I have to then open my phone and I'll notice all my icons are in different places. When I open the app drawer, I'm like, wait, I remembered where stuff is because I have muscle memory. Like I'll swipe up on my phone to go to my app drawer and I've just remembered where all the icons are so I can get to them real fast. And now they're all moved around. So now I got to slowly go through that whole list because it doesn't tell me what's new. It doesn't tell me it's stealth installed this shit. The update log or the change log for that update didn't tell me it installed a bunch of apps, but I'll have stuff like Brick Breaker 3D, Unblock Me, Candy Crush Saga. Like it's putting all these fucking... Yeah, it's putting all this shit on my phone. And it's games. It's always games. It's not like it's shit that I might actually use. It's not like they're trying to add a new feature. It's not like something that would be useful. It's fucking games. Always games. Something that no one really needs on their phone. You need a GPS. You need, certain camera apps and things for functionality. You don't need a game. You need the flashlight app. That could be useful. That could save your life. You don't need a fucking Candy Crush. But that's the shit that they thought needed to be a security update.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm honestly, I think Microsoft should have just made their phone like actually Windows. Like made it so that you can call people from your computer, not using fucking
they did.
Skype.
They did.
Then why
It
did it
did
go
all that.
away? What the fuck?
I told you.
Why wouldn't they keep the fucking calling feature through Windows though? Like
None
actual
of
Windows,
those.
not through the phone.
They do. Windows has a phone app and a phone sync feature to work with existing phones. Like they just repurposed that for Android and Apple. Well, I know it works with Android. I don't know about Apple phones, but yeah, you can link your Android
I've
phone.
used that, and it like, I guess you can call from your phone. I'm just like,
no, you can use you can use.
Like, if
I don't.
my phone's off, it doesn't work. If I'm not signed into my Microsoft
it's
account
still
on my phone, it doesn't work.
Yeah, it has to. It still has to sync to something. Like
I'm just saying, make Windows able to like make calls, like for real. Just fuck.
It can't.
Fuck
Not with your phone number. It can't. No. Your phone number goes through your carrier. Windows isn't contracted to connect to your carrier. Your phone is. It has to go through your phone. There's no way it would work without it because of how carriers work. No.
I think Microsoft could make its own carrier at that point.
Well, why?
Just have their own satellites.
Yeah, but why? That's really expensive for not a lot of return. Like, sure they could,
do
but
a lot of stupid shit, and it's expensive for not a lot of.
That's crazy. You're talking about putting new satellites in fucking space, dude. That is crazy expensive. For what? Like, how would they make money on that? That is insanely expensive. For what return? Like, it just doesn't make sense.
You use Windows over fucking some of these other operating systems.
Yeah, but the amount of money you'd spend to do that, there's a ton of other ways to make you use Windows over others. And plus, they don't need to do that. Windows has already won that game. Windows is the most used operating system in the world. What do they need to do more for to attract new people? There's no new people to attract. Everyone uses Windows. Everyone. No one's gaming on Mac. No one's gaming on Linux. Not really.
The new Steam stuff, it's actually become a lot easier, I've heard.
Apparently the Steam stuff is the Steam stuff's still very limited, and the stuff that it does do, like I know what you're talking about, the Steam OS, which no one. Let me get this. Let me make this clear right now. No fucking body is downloading Steam OS onto a computer. Only people using that are people with Steam Decks.
They didn't just make it Steam OS. It's also like a separate thing, like the fucking.
Yeah, you're talking about a percentage of gamers using that. 99.9% of people with Steam are on Windows. And the very few people that aren't, the small percentage of gamers that aren't, I mean, you're still talking millions of people because there's billions of people on Earth, but that's still low globally, and the vast number of gamers, that's still a low percent. But the millions of people who actually are using Linux or Steam OS on their computer or that, there aren't many games that play natively on Linux. So in order for them to support as many games as they do, it just emulates Windows on Linux. At that point, just get Windows. You're adding an extra step for no reason. And they don't run as well. There's a reason why things have to be verified for the Steam Deck, because they want to make sure they run well and that the Steam Deck can either emulate Windows and the game at the same time without it lagging, or that the devs make a Linux version of the game, which more devs are starting to do because of the Steam Deck, but it's still a low percent. Microsoft's already won the PC market. Like they've already fucking won that game. They don't need to get more people on board. They don't need to put satellites in space. They don't need to make their own carrier. Like you're talking about wasting billions upon billions of dollars for no good fucking reason.
I mean, I'd fucking use it.
Yeah, you would. Probably. There's probably other people who would, but it ain't about you. It's about...
Okay, have fun.
It's about money.
I'm going to bed.
Okay, get pissed because I said it ain't about you. Oh my god. Why do you do that? Like, I'm just trying to have a market conversation. I don't know. Maybe it's his age. He can't seem to like pull himself out of I'm the main character mode and see the bigger picture and understand the market. That's maybe it's because I work in marketing and it's what I do for a living. Like, it's my job to understand markets. Maybe I'm the outlier, but that's why I understand sales and markets so well, because I can track trends and I can see what the population wants. But yeah, like there's a handheld from Microsoft makes sense because they're struggling to get people to use Game Pass on their phones. It's hard to get people to do shit on their phones for some reason. It's even harder to get them to buy accessories for their phones, like a controller. Like if they got to carry around a separate thing, carrying around your phone and a controller you snap to your phone is carrying around two separate things. Then you have to take your phone out of your case. Like when I want to use my controller on my phone, I have to take the phone out of the case. It's very inconvenient. It's way more convenient to just carry a separate device that's just used for that thing. And then I don't have to like fuck with my phone. People don't like fucking with their phones, especially if they have to take the phone out of the case or do stuff with it. And they don't like carrying around two things to make it do one thing. They'd rather have a thing for this and a thing for this. And then when I want to do this, use the phone, I pick up my phone. When I want to play a game, I pick up the game thing. Yeah, people, I don't know why. That's how their brains work. That's just how people's brains work. That's just how the market works. That's just, it is what it is. Now, whether or not there's any validity behind Microsoft making a handheld, I don't know. Like, I want to say no, because they've typically, these rumors have popped up before in the past and they've avoided it. They've avoided making a handheld, but then again, in the past, every time they didn't make a handheld, their competition made one that did really well. And that happened again this time. And part of me is going, maybe they won't make the same mistake this time, especially since their new slogan is play anywhere. And they are trying to focus on people playing on something other than an Xbox, which is why they're pushing game streaming so hard. Maybe this will be how they get it there, because the Sony handheld did so well, and it's just a streaming device. The Switch did really well because of its portability. So maybe they see there's a market for it and they actually try to get a piece of it this time. Who knows? Who knows? Hard to say. Really hard to say. It's a believe it when I see it kind of thing for me with Microsoft in that market.